Proverbs chapter 15, verse 18 and 22 through 23. A hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. A person finds joy in giving an apt reply, and how good is a timely word. If you know what you're talking about and you give an opinion on something that helps another individual, the person who heard it is happy, and the person who was able to help is happy as well. Why? Because in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Proverbs 24, verse 6. Surely you need guidance to wage war, and victory is won through many advisors. Don't just run off and try to fight your own battles, saying, I know what I'm doing. Because there's never a reason to reinvent the wheel. There will always be people who will interject their own ideas, which is fine. You can have an opinion as to whether a piano belongs in the church or not, whether guitars belong in the church or not, whether drums belong in the church. You can have opinions, but if the Bible doesn't say anything about it, I can't say that this is doctrine. And that's where we make a mistake sometimes. We need to discern whether what we are saying is biblical or extra-biblical practices. Just because a person claims to be a pastor does not mean he is speaking God's truth. Just because someone is in the ministry does not mean that they are always going to live a life that is in keeping with the Scriptures. You see, it's not, by grace are you saved through faith, and that's all that is. You do whatever you want to. No, it's like keep faithful to what God has called you to do. Paul explains to the Ephesians in chapter 2, verse 8 and 9. And when we present the gospel, we usually quote verses 8 and 9. But verse 10 is what naturally follows verses 8 and 9 when you have received the gospel. Paul explains, for it is by grace you have been saved through faith. And this, even the faith is not from yourselves, it's a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's handiwork. We are created in Christ Jesus, what? To do good works. For our lives to be changed, because God has prepared in advance for us works that we are to do. Good works. That is, yes, benevolence, but also living rightly. Yes, kindness, but also doing what God has called us to do. So the works that we do follow our salvation by grace through faith in Christ. God promised Abraham that through Isaac all nations of the earth would be blessed. God promised Abraham that through Isaac and his children, multiple, as countless as the stars are in the sky, so that's how many children would come from Isaac. That was a promise of God. And guess what? Abraham believed God's promise. And so now God says, hey, Abraham, I want you to take Isaac and go to the mountain that I tell you and there sacrifice him as a sacrifice to me. Abraham didn't say, but Lord. He said, okay. Why? His faith made it so that no matter what God asked him to do, he knew God's promise came first. And so no matter what he was called upon to do, God was still going to use Isaac. Isaac wasn't married yet. Isaac didn't have any kids yet, right? And so God's promise was true. He believed God's promise, and he acted on that promise. Now, it never was God's will for him to actually sacrifice Isaac. That never was God's plan. God already had something prepared. As a matter of fact, remember when Isaac said, Dad? Yes? Well, I see we have the knife. And I see we have the firewood, and we have the fire. But aren't we forgetting the sacrifice? And Abraham's answer was, God will prepare for himself a sacrifice. We're going to go up there, and God's going to prepare something for us to sacrifice there. That's how much faith he had, and he was willing to act knowing that God would not violate his promises. Because faith isn't just a matter of mental ascension of the truth. It is a commitment to obedience.